We are now going to take all the information that we did previously and sketch this thing. So we're sketching this before us. Now, when you're sketching something with a vertical translation, there's a very important thing that you should do first. So I don't want you to draw anything for a second. I just want to step you through what you're going to do here. So don't draw this. What I'm going to do is just draw the cos graph without any vertical translations. So there it is right there. Now, what I want you to see is that I'm centered around when y is equal to 0. So in other words, where the x-axis is. That's where I'm centered around. Now, if I shift my graph vertically, so in this case, moving it down by 1. So I'm taking the graph, and I'm shifting it down here. I'm no longer centered at y is equal to 0. Now I'm centered at -1. So what are you going to draw here? I want you to get rid of, I'm going to get rid of all this. The first thing I do is I look at what my vertical translation is. So it's -1. I go there and I put in a dotted line at where the vertical translation is, because this is where my graph is going to be centered around. So can you do that first? Put in where your graph is going to be centered around. After that, you can then look at your amplitude, which is 2, which means I'm going 2 up. So 1, 2. So it'll go up to 2. Sorry, go up to 1 rather, because 1, 2, that's 1. And then I'm going to go down as well. So 1, 2, it's going to be right down here. This will be -3, because I'm going 2 down from -1. All right, then what I'm also going to do is put in dotted lines here. Now, all these dotted lines that I'm drawing, you need to ensure that you're doing them in pencil, because you're going to have to rub them out. These cannot stay there. They're just helping us draw our graph as accurately as possible. So all of these dotted lines that I've drawn thus far have to be erased at the end. All right, what else do we know about this graph? Well, if we go back to the information that we found above, we know that the amplitude is 2, we did that. The period is pi, my y-intercept is 1, and then these are my x-intercepts. So I know that my y-intercept is occurring right here, 0, 1. I also know that the domain of this is 0 to 2 pi, and the period is pi. So that means I'm going to get 2 cycles going in here. So I could try to give it a sketch now. I don't think that would be a bad idea. So if I was to draw this, it's going to be that standard cos graph. So down, up, like that. So that right there would be pi. And then I would go again, down, up, like that. And that would be 2 pi. Okay, once we have done that, I would also make sure that I label this endpoint here, which would be 2 pi and 1. Then I need to make sure that I label my x-intercepts. And these are the x-intercepts that I found up here. So I have pi on 6. I have 5 pi on 6. I have 7 pi on 6. And I have 11 pi on 6. So those are my x-intercepts. So I've labeled my y-intercept, my endpoint, and my x-intercepts. I'm done. That's all I need to label. If you wanted to, you could label where the minimum is occurring here. So this would occur, if this is pi, this would be pi on 2, but that isn't necessary. And over here as well, this would be 3 pi on 2, because it's just going to be halfway between pi and 2 pi. But those aren't necessary. You just need to make sure that you've labeled all your actual intercepts and that you've just done it correctly. Of course, at the end here, you would rub out all these black dotted lines because they're not actually a part of the graph. They just helped us draw this thing accurately. So there you go. That's how you draw it. Hopefully you found this helpful in going about it.